Once upon a time, there was a small village nestled deep in the woods. The villagers lived in harmony with nature, but they also feared it. They believed that the woods were home to all manner of spirits and demons, and they did their best to avoid venturing into them. Many villagers had disappeared in the woods over the years, and their bodies were never found. The villagers believed that the spirits and demons of the woods were responsible, and they feared venturing into the forest. One day, a young girl named Sarah, who was known for being fearless and curious, decided to ignore the villagers' warnings and ventured into the woods to pick berries. Despite her better judgment, she got too curious and decided to take her chance. As she walked deeper into the dense foliage, she felt a growing sense of unease, but she shrugged it off and continued on her way. As she reached a clearing, she heard a rustling in the bushes. She turned around, but saw nothing. She shrugged it off and continued on her way, but soon she started to feel like she was being watched. She could feel eyes on her, but when she turned around, there was nothing there. She saw signs of something amiss. The animals were all gone and it was too quiet. She heard strange noises and felt the presence of something, but she brushed it off thinking it's just her imagination. Suddenly, she heard a twig snap behind her. She froze in fear. She slowly turned around and saw a figure standing in the shadows. It was a dark and twisted creature with sharp claws and glowing eyes. It let out a deafening scream and lunged at her. Sarah ran as fast as she could, but the creature was always one step behind. She could feel its hot breath on her heels, and she knew that it was only a matter of time before it caught up to her. Just when she thought all was lost, she stumbled upon an old cabin. She bolted inside and slammed the door shut. She leaned against the door, panting and covered in sweat. But she wasn't alone. She heard a voice in her head, whispering her name. She looked around the cabin, and she saw nothing. The voice grew louder and more insistent, until she could no longer ignore it. The voice belonged to a witch who had been trapped inside the cabin for centuries. The witch had been using her powers to lure unsuspecting villagers into the woods and sacrificing them to the spirits. In exchange, the spirits protected her and granted her immense powers. The witch had chosen Sarah as her next sacrifice, but Sarah refused to be a victim. She remembered the villagers' warnings about the spirits in the woods, and she knew that the witch could be stopped. She drew on her courage and confronted the witch. The battle was intense and grueling. The witch used all her powers and illusions to try to stop Sarah, but Sarah's will was stronger. She fought back with all her might, using her own courage and determination to defeat the witch. The witch was banished back to the spirit realm, but not before she cursed Sarah. The curse is that she would always be haunted by her experience in the woods and the guilt of the villagers she couldn't save. Sarah would have to carry the burden for the rest of her life. When she returned to the village, the villagers were amazed. They had heard her screams echoing through the woods, and they had thought she was lost forever. But she had returned, victorious over the spirits and demons of the woods. From that day on, the villagers avoided venturing into the woods again, but they were no longer afraid. They knew that Sarah would protect them, and they knew that the spirits and demons could be defeated. Sarah's victory over the witch came at a great cost, however. The curse haunted her, and she was unable to forget her experience in the woods. The guilt of not being able to save the other villagers weighed heavily on her, and she withdrew from the village, living alone in the cabin. Years passed, and the village prospered, but the villagers never forgot about Sarah and the sacrifice she made for them. They would often leave offerings of food and flowers at the cabin's doorstep, and they would tell their children the story of the brave young girl who defeated the witch and saved the village. Sarah never returned to the village, but her spirit continued to watch over them, and the villagers knew that they were safe as long as she was there.